Last week of the monthly theme, A World That Works for Everyone. That's what we're talking about this month of August. And had I been thinking more clearly, I would have entitled this talk What I Did on My Summer Vacation. But I'm going to stick with the theme, all right? The world that works for everyone. And today's talk is A New Earth. And it is about a world that works for everyone. That's what a new earth is. It's about our changing consciousness. To create that world that works for everyone, we need to awaken so that we can create that space for all beings, for all life, to live in harmony with each other. Ernest Holmes wrote this beautiful essay about a new earth in Creative Mind, and he said this: the storehouse of nature is filled with infinite good, awaiting the touch of our awakened thought to spring forth into manifestation in our life. But the awakening must be on our part and not on the part of life. We stand at the gateway of limitless opportunity in the eternal and changeless now. Now is the day in which to begin the new life that is to lift us up to greater expression of all that is wonderful. The world that we speak is the law of our life, and nothing hinders us but ourselves. We have, through ignorance of our real nature, misused the power of our word, and behold what it has brought upon us, the very thing that we have feared. But now it shall produce a new thing, a new heaven, and a new earth. I just thought that was so beautiful. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about a new earth. It is our consciousness. It's awakening to the consciousness of what we can create together in respecting and honoring all life. So I was in Florida for the last 10 days on vacation, visiting my dad, who, like I said, celebrated his 92nd birthday. Yay. He's doing fine, and we did a lot of all things Florida. You know when you go, when you go to Florida, you do all things Florida, like we don't do here in California. Like we went airboat riding on the St. Johns River with all the alligators. There's alligators wherever you go. You can't do anything without alligators. Okay, we went to the beach. There's no alligators there, but there's sharks, so it's like a trade-off. We went to the marina. We went out on the boat. We visited an alligator farm. See, there's a theme here, more alligators. We fished off the dock, and as we do all those things Florida, I started thinking about all the animals that you come across. And what they teach us about ourselves, And maybe there's the animals we don't run across here in California, but it's interesting. Alligators. They just keep popping up over and over again. Man, are there alligators in Florida. It's wild. Now, alligators are just about as ancient a life form as you can get. They have survived millions and millions of years unchanged, because they're perfectly suited to their environment. I mean, perfectly. And that reptilian brain that's in the alligator is within us. We all have that at the base of our, at the base of our brains, that reptilian brain. Eat, sleep, reproduce. Eat, sleep, reproduce. There is that reptilian brain. The bottom level of survival. Eat, sleep, reproduce. That's what they do. Total reptilian brain. Ancient, successful, and thriving. And then I go to the marina, right? I go to the marina, look at the boats and go out in them and everything, check on my brother-in-law's sailboats and outboard motorboats. They have all kinds of boats. And the manatee are just kind of floating around. They're just floating around the marina. I love that. They're just so sweet. They're munching on grass, munching on seagrass or whatever they can find. They're vegetarians, right? So that's all they do is they kind of float. And that whole vegetarian thing in body shape, I'm beginning to wonder about that too, because they're just about as big as you can get and all they eat is greens. So I'm like worrying about that a little bit. Anyway, they just, float and hover and just as sweet as can be. And they're friendly and they're docile and they're soft and they're slow. And the alligators won't go near them. The alligators, I guess it's because they're too big to bite. I don't know, but the alligators won't bother them at all. And then at Cocoa Beach, here's what I love about the Atlantic. The water temperature was 84 degrees. Oh, it's lovely. I come back to the Pacific and it's like, oh my God, I can't even get in. But anyway, And in that lovely 84-degree water, when the kids were surfing, there's sharks. I mean, they're just sharks. They cohabitate with the swimmers. It's really awful. I couldn't do it, but anyway, there are sharks. Ew, and it makes me nervous to see the surfers out there, particularly when it's my daughter. It makes me a little nervous to see them out there with the little sharky things. But the sharks are perfect predators, aren't they? They are perfect predators. They do what they do with skill and precision. Nothing personal. They swim and they eat and they swim, and that's it. They are relentless. But it's not personal, it's just what they do. That's just what they do. Minimum effort, maximum payoff. You gotta love it. And so I'm sitting at the beach shack, which is this cute little place that faces Cocoa Beach, and the pelicans go by. We have a whole bunch of brown pelicans go by, and they're like these guardians of the sky. They just cruise along the shore and they look at stuff and they fly in formation. And they just eye everything around them. We call them the beach patrol because they just cruise. They just cruise up and down. They're always on the lookout. And when my son was fishing at the pier, he would occasionally pull up a fish, a mullet or something, Indian River. And there was a pelican sitting on the pier by him, and the pelican would go like this, and he would move one step closer to him, one step closer to him. And as he's reeling in the fish, the pelican just kept getting a little closer and a little closer, until at one point he's like leaning over Adrian's shoulder looking, Are you going to eat that? You going to share? What are you going to do? They're just always on the lookout. They're always on the lookout. It's so funny. So then as you're sitting at the beach shack, I look at the little sand crabs, and they're adorable. They come out of their little holes, and they all move sideways. They don't do anything. They take all this circuitous route all the time. There's nothing straightforward about crabs. They're always going this way, going that way. They get to their destination, but over hill and over dale and all around the world. All around the world. It's funny. So after a day at the beach, I go back to my dad's house. Armadillos. Armadillos. Talk about ancient. And they're like armored. And if you sneak up on one accidentally and you startle it, they do that thing where it's like they're just a little steel ball. It's so cute. They just, when danger comes, they wrap themselves up and they become this little steel ball. And you just can't get into them. You can't do anything with them. It's amazing, And then feeding my dad's bird feeder, those squirrels, the nervous little ground squirrels come. And they eat, and they look, and they eat, and they look, and they always look like they're nervous. And well, because of all the alligators, I'm sure. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But they're nervous and frantic and scurrying all the time. They're always on the lookout for something, and I don't even know what it is. But they're on the lookout for something. So I'm thinking about all these critters. And I'm thinking about the theme this month, the world that works for everything. And this talk title, A New Earth. And I'm thinking about all those animals. I mean, think about it. Think about it. Haven't we all been one of those at some point? I mean, I looked at it and I thought, well, reptilian brain of the alligator. I've been that. Like when you were at college and someone stole you the last piece of pizza out of the fridge, and that was your piece of pizza, and you went like, ah, And it wasn't like you were going to starve to death, but it was the reptilian brain. My food, and now it's gone. We resort back to that reptilian brain. And it's scary, I mean, haven't you been an alligator? Just eat, sleep, reproduce. Eat, sleep, reproduce. I've been an alligator. Sometimes I call it my pterodactyl. My pterodactyl comes out, it's like, rah, And there's nothing soft or fuzzy about it. But I think we've all been that. I've been a manatee at times. Have you been a manatee? Soft and gentle and yielding and just kind of floating along and letting life just be life. I've been a shark. Who hasn't been a shark? If you're in business, if you're working at all, right? Doesn't your shark come out sometimes? Relentless, driven, purposeful. Get the job done, right? Nothing personal, but I will eat you alive. Who hasn't been a shark every once in a while? And I've been a pelican. I've been a guardian. I've been watching over things, watching over children, watching over people. We've all been a pelican every now and then. We've all been a crab. Oh, I can tell you, I know who's been crabs here. I've been a crab, and taking that circuitous route, going sideways to go forward. I mean, who doesn't do that? Taking the more scenic route to get to where we need to go. Over hill, over dale, never in a straight line. And I've been an armadillo, protective, closed in on myself. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Don't touch me, for God's sakes, leave me alone. I need my little protective shell. I think we've all been that too. And a squirrel, yeah, I've been a squirrel at times. I don't know that that's my go-to behavior, but I've been nervous and weird and frantic at times, haven't we all, really? And that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing. It's like we can recognize all of the animal kingdom, I think, within ourselves. We've been all of those things every once in a while. And so if we can recognize them in ourselves, how easy then it can be to recognize it in others. And how much easier it is then to accept others for maybe their less than skilled behavior around us. How much easier it is to go, oh, yeah, she's being her shark today. Because we can recognize it in ourselves, we can easily recognize it in others. And if we do value all of the animal kingdom and all of the things that they bring us, and all of the types of behaviors that we reflect upon as facets of our own behavior, doesn't that make us better guardians of the world at large? Doesn't it make us better guardians? If we can recognize ourselves in the behaviors of all animals, doesn't it make us better at having dominion over the whole world? Isn't it much easier to love all of those animals that we can identify with? This is how a world works for everyone. When we can identify with aspects of everything, then there is no longer separation. There's that oneness that flows throughout all of life. We accept that we contain all of it. And so we see it reflected back at us from other people, other animals, all forms of life around us. We are that. And when we get it that we are that, there is no longer separation. We are infinite complex creatures. We're capable of showing any number of facets, right? We think of ourselves as these beautiful diamonds. And every single facet of us is reflected. And it's all kinds of things. We're all of them and more. I mean, that was just a little sample. I mean, I'm sure you can go home and think of all other ways that you reflect those behaviors. But in order to, if we're creating a world that works for everyone, I have to accept your crabby nature. And you need to accept my pelican. We need to really understand and accept that we are all of those things and more. I have to find the positive in your shark, and you delight in my manatee. And we get it that we're all of these things and more. We embrace the different aspects of our own nature. We can begin to accept the whole range of behaviors in each other, in ourselves, and in the animal kingdom at large, in all of life everywhere. We branch out and we can embrace all of life. We can care for the non-human among us because we see so much of it reflected in our own behaviors. We are that too. We are that too. It's easy. It's easy to identify with those that we share the earth with when we find something in common with them. But what does the world tell us? That's this. When I was thinking about this, and I was getting all warm and fuzzy, thinking about, oh, isn't it great? It's so wonderful. Yay, it's just one big peaceful world, one big blue marble. And then I started thinking, yeah, but what does the world tell us? What does the world tell us? And the world tells us, we're humans. We're at the top of the food chain. Yeah, go to the beach. You're not top of the food chain. But we're supposed to be the top of the food chain. We're humans. We're supposed to have dominion over all creatures, right? That's what it says in the Bible. But the world tells us that there are limited resources. The world tells us that more for you means less than for me. The world tells us that it's a dog-eat-dog world. God, I hate that expression. That's gross. That there are haves and have-nots. That there are winners and losers. Boy, we're hearing a lot of losers in this primary season. Anyway. some people or groups of people are inherently bad, right? We hear stereotypes of people by gender or by race or by ethnicity that are criticized because, looked up to or frowned upon based on, just whole group identities. It's so weird that, certain jobs are good and certain jobs are bad, or, this is a career to get into or not that career. We're told all kinds of things, from the world. How much money can you make doing this? And don't do that, and, all that kind of stuff. These are the things that the world tells us, but what do we know? What do we really know? And I think that I go back to Romans where it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. Be transformed. Take what the world says and don't buy into it. Declare the truth for yourself. Declare that spiritual will that we know is truth. What we get from the world is limit and war and, oh God, all kinds of shortage and grief and, attacks upon each other. But when we stand in the truth of who we are, when we stand in the truth of knowing who we are, listening to our own hearts, listening to our own intuition, listening to the still small voice within us, we are listening to the God self within us. We are listening to that highest nature. We must remember who we are. If we're going to transform this world, if we're going to create a world that works for everyone, if we are going to live in a new earth, we need to do that work. We need to stand up. We need to reject those false beliefs that the world is telling us, and we need to stand in our truth. Ernest Holmes said this. He said, I have blotted out as a thick cloud thy transgressions. For behold, I create a new heaven and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered nor come into my mind. Whatever the mistakes of yesterday may have been, today is a new creation. Turning from the errors of the past and no longer carrying with us the sorrows and mistakes of yesterday, today we may enter into a new experience. But it's only when we forgive everyone that we may feel certain that the weight of condemnation is lifted from our own consciousness. Today I lose all condemnation. I judge not. I am judged only by the law of good. There is no animosity, no criticism, no hatred. I shall behold the face of love, of beauty, and of peace in every one I meet. That's a tall order. In every one I meet, not just in some people, not just in your friends, in every one we meet. We behold the face of God in every one that crosses our path. We want a new earth. That's how we start getting a new earth. That's how we start creating a new earth, is by refusing to buy into what the world tells us and to see God in every face that we meet. Every person, even those PIAs, you know who they are, the ones in your life that you just really, really can't be bothered with, or you can't deal with, or you can't, even them. You must see the face of God in them. Ernest Holmes tells us of a love so great that nothing can separate us from our truth. Nothing. And how do we get there from here? How do we get there from here when we're being bombarded constantly by the sound of the world, by the news, by the relentless us against them mentality? How do we get there from here? What he said was forgiveness. That's our first and biggest step, forgiveness. Giving up all sense of separation is another thing we can do. I am that. Whenever we seek to separate ourselves from them, you know who they are, right? They're always the ones making trouble. It's never us, it's always them. Whenever we separate ourselves out, we're encouraging that false belief of separation. We are that. We are that. So we forgive our own trespasses easily. We forgive others easily. We have to give up that sense of separation. We must give up fear as a way of life. Please, don't tell Fox News, but we're giving up fear. We are going to give up fear as a way of life. Swear off fear. You know, what's the acronym is like, false evidence appearing real, right? Yeah, see, I'm from New York. I was told it was F everything and run. you know, that's the way I was taught. But it really means face everything, right? Face everything and rise. Face everything and rise. We have nothing to fear. We stand in the truth of our own inner knowledge, inner wisdom. We stand knowing that spirit is within us. God and I are a majority. There's nothing to be afraid of when we understand that we are spirit speaking. We can turn away from the false evidence appearing real. We can turn away from the voice of the world, the voice that's constantly telling us to be on alert. Remember when they had that thing after 9/11? They had that big thermometer, about how the alert, the terror alert, and it was always, it went from green down the bottom all the way up to red. You remember how it never fell below like orange? They always kept us red, orange, red, orange. They always wanted us to stay up there at the height of fear. Be afraid, be very afraid. And Spirit's telling us there's nothing to be afraid of. There is nothing to be afraid of. Swear off fear. Embrace life. Acknowledge the commonalities instead of the differences. Focus on what is going right in our lives. We're complex creatures, right? You got a whole ton of stuff going on at the same time, don't you? Let go of the stuff that's not going right or not going the way you think it ought to go. Concentrate on the stuff that's going right. Remember that energy flows where attention goes thing. I mean, it really does work. Energy flows where attention goes. So if your attention is always on what's going right, that's what you're manifesting. That's what you're developing more of. If we are desiring this world that works for everybody, we need to concentrate on that. Place our energy there. Place our focus on the stuff that we're doing well, that we are doing right, where we are coming together as one, where we are creating a new world, where things are where people are loving each other and forgiving each other and settling differences and creating that new world. We have to keep focusing on that and let the stuff that's not measuring up to that fall away. Because when we continue to keep our focus on what's right, we keep growing that. I want to end with this beautiful prayer that Ernest Holmes wrote. He said, today is, in Creative Ideas, he wrote, today is a new beginning. I create new heavens and a new earth. Nothing is ever twice alike. Everything is continuously being recreated, and it literally is true that the creative spirit is forever making all things new. We must permit it to make them new for us. I live today as though the words of this, my affirmative prayer, were already accomplished facts in my experience. I empty my mind of every fear and doubt. I condemn no one and no thing, not even myself. I forget that which is past and have no fear toward the future. I live in harmony with people and with all situations that surround me. I see and feel the presence of God running through everything. I have complete faith in this divine presence revealing itself to me in my every thought, my every word, and my every act. There is nothing in my thought about the past or the future that can in any way deny me the pleasure and privilege of living today as though everything were complete and perfect. My whole expectancy is of much and more, of good and of better. The future is bright with hope and fulfillment. The present is perfect, and no past failure mars today's understanding. Today is the start of my new and more successful experience of achievement. Life is good, and so it is.